you can see the screen.
Yeah, sure, sure. The permission is granted. I think you will
Yeah,
be able to share the screen.
sure. Just. So is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes, it's visible.
Awesome. Awesome. So to begin with, very good evening to all of you who have taken time out to join this particular session. And thank you very much. And special thanks to Sabyasachi Mukherjee and Solomon for inviting me for this particular session. I understand it's a Saturday evening, and if you people are investing, so you people are mostly are investment bankers. So if you people are investing 2 hours of your time, it's my responsibility also to ensure that you can bank upon me on this Six Sigma concepts, right? So thank you very much. And with that, so how we'll proceed about the session? So I had thought about making it into two parts. One aspect I'll be talking about not the theory, not the dry theory which is there, but the overall context setting and the overall concept of Six Sigma from a banking and finance standpoint. That will be the first aspect. And once that part is over, you can keep putting your questions in the chat box, and from that chat box I can pick the questions and I'll try to answer all of those. And also, after the end of the session, feel free to ask as many questions as possible, because definitely Six Sigma and banking finance, these are two concepts which can't be covered completely in 2 hours. Having said that, I'll try to give you the direction which you will require. You can gauge basis that whether you want to explore that subject further or not. And also you will get an understanding that in which all areas you can start looking at problems from a Six Sigma standpoint. So this will be the basic agenda which I'll be following. So fundamentally, the 3 pointers which are there on the posters, which was designed beautifully by you and your team, has been put. So this is what I am going to cover. With that, just a quick introduction about me. So fundamentally, as already Solomon had beautifully introduced me, but just to talk about a few other things. So I actually come with an expertise in the domain of Six Sigma, Lean, Agile, and data science mostly. So that which predominantly covers the process and quality aspect. Also, I had handled operations as well across different sectors: e-commerce, IT, manufacturing, and of course banking. So till date, I had executed and led 500 plus process improvement projects, and trained almost 3,000 plus professionals, as well as conducted university programs for different students. So I had also put my coordinates, my email and my phone number, which is my WhatsApp number as well. So as I was mentioning, that generally what happens whenever a quick guest talk kind of a session takes place, people end up with a lot of queries which they may miss out during the session itself. In case you feel anything of that sort, please feel free to reach out to me. I may not be able to respond instantly, but do drop me a message or do drop me a mail. I'll try to get back to you within 24 hours. This is what I personally follow as a one of the principles. So please do that, and definitely try to utilize the session to ask whatever questions come to your mind and get the clarity in the session itself. So this is about my introduction, and with that, let me get into the topic now. So fundamentally, so the topic is Six Sigma in banking and finance, and most of you are from the domain of investment banking. So I just wanted to highlight that when you talk about investment banking, the basic definition, whatever you pick from your textbook also, or from Wikipedia also, from Investopedia also, whatever be the source, fundamentally it's the financial service company, an investment bank, or a corporate division that fundamentally engages in advisory based financial transactions. Now, why I had put this in red is that is where Six Sigma comes into play. So, in the entire context of investment banking, if you look at either the selling side or the buying side, it talks about financial transaction. And wherever there is a transaction, please keep in mind that is where you can actually think of applying Six Sigma. Now, what is a transaction? Transaction is nothing but the execution of a process from a very simplistic standpoint. Even though there are multiple ways of looking at transaction, but how you look at transaction from a simple process standpoint is it is nothing but an execution of a process. So when something is executed, a transaction is happening. From a banking standpoint, there is a customer who has come and he wants to open an account. So that account opening itself is a transaction. Now there is a customer complaint which is coming. There is the customer is making a phone call to the customer care number. So that phone call, that particular call becomes a transaction. So that is why all this execution of processes becomes transaction, and wherever there is a transaction happening, you can actually think of applying Six Sigma in that particular transaction. So that is the context setting I wanted to do before getting into any further depth. Now, let me talk about the big picture. Why I just wanted to talk about the big picture, because people keep on saying that, okay, this is a sector. Now, banking and finance is not a sector which is completely into technology, but technology plays an enabler into that. So a lot of people, while conducting workshops for different domains, I had seen that people have different perspective about Six Sigma. They think that, okay, Six Sigma is a part of data science. Six Sigma is somewhat close to machine learning or artificial intelligence. People think that no, it's completely technology. So that's not the case. If you want to segregate and place Six Sigma in the bigger picture, so that is how this is the simplistic view of Six Sigma. So you have, just think of the overall concepts into three buckets. So you have business as one bucket, you have statistics as one bucket, you have technology as the third bucket. Now, wherever there is an overlap between statistics and business, so fundamentally, whenever you are applying statistics or mathematics, which may not be pure statistics, but mathematics, anything related to mathematics, into business, so that is Six Sigma. That is more of an application driven kind of a concept. So a lot many time I get a question that do I need to be a master in statistics to apply Six Sigma in my business? The answer is no. You can still be a part of a Six Sigma project even without coming from a statistical background. So, but fundamentally, statistics plays a role in Six Sigma. So that is where Six Sigma comes into play. Generally, wherever there is an overlap between statistics and technology, that is where machine learning comes into play. And wherever there is a technology and business part, there is an overlap between these two concepts, there is a DBMS or database management system comes into play. And data science is the overall thing. So data science encompasses all these things. So it talks about statistics, as it talks about technology, it talks about business as well. So that is why data science is the overall superset of everything. So that is why you can understand that in the Venn diagram where all the three circles are intersecting, I had put data science. But today we are not going to talk about data science. We are not going to talk about GBMS or machine learning. We are going to specifically talk about Six Sigma, and then we will try to understand that where Six Sigma and how Six Sigma can give us benefit in banking and finance specifically. So that will be the scope of the particular discussion which we are going to have here today. Now, just to give you another thought about the application. So whenever we say that statistics or data, now in banking and finance, with every transaction, whatever activities are happening, there is a set of data which is getting generated. Now, how the data is getting stored fundamentally becomes the part of database. So that is where Oracle, your Teradata, all these databases come into play. So that is where the engineering guys, typically the technocrat guys, come into picture. So that is why the DBMS is that particular segment. But once you pull out the data and making sense out of that data, that requires a different skill set. Yes, one person may have both the skill sets, but The second one is a different skill set altogether. So that is where Six Sigma comes into play. So don't think that if you want to be a Six Sigma professional, you need to start with query building. That is not what is required fundamentally. If you want to do a Six Sigma project, you may not be aware of SQL queries. You may not be aware of the technical part of pulling out the data. So please have this particular concept in mind so that it will help you to understand where you can put Six Sigma into place in your workplace. Now, so with that understanding, I want to cover a few concepts, and then I want to talk in details about how and where all these things can be put in place. To begin with, uh, I want to understand that what is the total number of participants we have right now, Solomon?
It's 41.
41.
Yeah.
So just wanted to do a quick poll. Uh, how many of this 41, so if people can raise their hand, we can do a quick count check, are from pure finance background. Maybe we can break for 30 seconds to understand. Uh, can we have the count, please? If Solomon, if you don't mind, if you
15.
can help me out
Yeah,
with that,
yes, yes,
because
yes.
yeah,
It's
because my screen
15.
is already shared.
Okay, okay.
15.
Yeah, 16.
Cool. 16. Cool. Uh, Another second question I want to ask, and maybe I'll pause for 30 more seconds. How many of you have a Six Sigma background? Not just out of this 14 or 15. Like I know Sabyasachi comes from a Six Sigma background. How many of you come from a Six Sigma background? If you can just take that call.
It's totally 9.
Cool. So we have a good mix. So that's why I just wanted to understand, because generally at times if a large portion of the audience comes from the Six Sigma background, then it is not necessary to reiterate a few concepts, but this is a very good mix. Actually, here I can see that 15 people are from finance background, and there are 27 odd people who are not from pure finance background, and also we have 25% of people who comes from a Six Sigma background. So that's a very good mix that we have. So what I'll do, I'll start off with the basics of Six Sigma. Then we'll get into how Six Sigma can be used in problem solving as a whole. Then we'll get into how Six Sigma can be specifically used in the banking sector. So we'll take banking more as a domain where Six Sigma can be applied. Now, fundamentally speaking, what is Six Sigma? Now, people who come from the Six Sigma domain or who have background in Six Sigma will be able to answer it very easily. But just for others, I'll try to answer that. So whenever you look at Six Sigma, you will find that there is one digit six, and there is a digit, there is a Greek symbol sigma attached to it. And people tend to think that, okay, this is something related to the standard deviation of mathematics and all those things. Don't look at it in that way. Six Sigma is basically, just keep this in mind. This will help you a lot if you explore your career in Six Sigma also as one of the tools. Six Sigma is fundamentally a problem solving principle. So it's a basically a problem solving principle. Now, what is a problem? Problem can be anything. The problem can be anything that comes to your mind. So whenever I conduct workshop, this is one concept I tell to people: don't restrict your thought that, okay, this is a business problem and this is not a business problem. It is not like that. Whatever is obstructing the flow for you is a problem. And Six Sigma, believe me, actually can be of help in solving those problems. Now, how does Six Sigma solve the problem? This is one question which generally tend to be asked. And how Six Sigma is related to Lean, because a lot of time people say that, okay, someone is Lean Six Sigma expert, someone is not just Six Sigma expert, someone is Lean Six Sigma expert. So why these two terms are taken at tandem? So now to answer that, Six Sigma improves a process by reducing variance. Now, when I say variance, what is a variance? Variance is fundamentally you can look at variance as a defect. Now, what is a defect? Whenever there is a result which you are expecting is not coming up as the final outcome, it's a variance or it's a defect. Now, I'll give some examples to to for you to relate to the concept better. Suppose you are saying that there is a customer who has called to the customer care number, and that person is ideally, you have set a process and you had said that this particular customer should be answered within 1 minute. I'm just taking a random number. If you have defined this, and now if a call is not getting answered within 1 minute, then that particular instance or that particular transaction, just for you to relate to the bigger picture, which I talked about at the beginning of the session, that becomes a defect for you. Okay, so that particular one instance is one defect for you. Now, similarly, you can have a scenario where you have defined that there should not be any instance where a person had attempted to open an account. I'm giving very simple example from the banking sector, where a person wants to open an account either in offline mode or via online mode, and he had failed to do that. Whenever he had failed to do that, that becomes a defect. Now, for Six Sigma, how you should look at a problem, you need to pull out a data to understand how many such defects are there. Now, who is defining these defects? You are the one, you as the management or you as the leadership, you as the stakeholder are defining it. So, in your case, in your bank, in your banking scenario, if losing out on either of these opportunities is a defect, then that becomes a defect for you. If someone is in the share market and if someone wants to predict the share for the next day, so if the prediction is happening correctly the next day, that is not a defect. But if the prediction is not happening correctly the next day with whatever percentage of error you have defined, then that becomes a defect. So you are fundamentally in Six Sigma, please keep this concept in mind, you actually try to reduce the variance. What is variance? Variance is nothing but a defect, which is a deviation from the expected outcome. Whenever there is a deviation from the expected outcome, whatever be the type of transaction, that becomes a defect for you. Now, so this is about Six Sigma. So this is Six Sigma fundamentally talks about problem solving. Now, what is lean? Because a lot many times the name of lean is taken along with Six Sigma. There are multiple reasons behind that. I'll give you one reason why this happens, or rather two reasons I'll give. Point number one is both Six Sigma and Lean, for that matter, some other concepts also, other majority problem solving concepts also, come fundamentally from the manufacturing industry. So in the manufacturing industry, these particular concepts were being used. Then slowly people realize that these are such problem solving techniques which are not bound to any particular domain. Why these are not bound to any particular domain? Because this particular concepts talk about some of the things which can be beautifully cross-deployed. Since the concepts can be cross-deployed, they got adopted in different sectors, starting from IT to supply chain and of course to banking and finance. And that is where Six Sigma and Lean work beautifully together. So that is one reason why that two names are taken together. Second reason is that in Six Sigma, so there are different stages of Six Sigma, there are different phases of Six Sigma, which definitely I'll talk about as a part of this particular discussion. And as one of the part where you are actually implementing the solution, that is where some of the lean techniques also come into play. Okay, so we had talked about lean, we had talked about why lean and Six Sigma, these two concepts are taken together. Now with that, let us try and understand what is lean. We had talked about Six Sigma. We said that it's all about problem solving via reduction of variance. Now, what is lean? In lean, it is exactly a very similar concept. It is also a problem solving technique. It is also a problem solving principle, whatever way you want to put it. But in case of lean, instead of reduction of variance, we try to reduce something called waste. Now, what is a waste? Waste is nothing but a process or an activity, such an activity where there is resources which are getting consumed, but there is no value which is getting added. So any activity where resources are getting consumed but no value addition is happening, that particular activity is known as a waste. And in case of lean, you try to reduce waste. One quick example of a waste: suppose here in this today's session, 39 people, or rather 38 people excluding me, have invested 2 hours of time. So time is also an investment. You all are investment banker, you know what all our investments are. So all these people who are investing 2 hours of time, if you are not getting any value out of the session, which I will definitely not want to happen, but definitely if you people are not getting any value out of it, then that activity of a session becomes a waste. Okay, so lean says very simply, lean is comparatively simpler than Six Sigma. So people who do not come from a statistical or mathematical background also can adopt to lean very quickly. So lean says in a process you have to identify all these activities, and then you simply need to either reduce them or optimize them. Okay, so that is the concept of lean. So lean does not say all the time that you have to reduce, you have to completely eliminate something, but you can optimize that also. So for example, if you find that there is a training which is going too long, there is a training, there is an induction training which is happening whenever someone joins the banking industry, and if the training is happening for maybe 16 hours, and if you feel that okay, these 16 hours are not adding that much of value that the person can be put on the ground immediately on the next day, so then you should think of reducing the amount of training and maybe the time which is getting consumed. So instead of 16 hours, you may think of making it 8 hours. So just some random numbers which I'm thinking of. And then you can see that how that goes. So that is about lean. And please keep in mind, whenever you do not have data to study a process, but you want to make an improvement. So there is a problem statement which has been thrown at you, or you had basis your experience, you thought that fine, there is a problem in this particular process of mine, or in this particular process which is there, which I can see in my investment banking arena, and you do not have data. So ideally you should go ahead and deploy lean principles. Obviously I'm not getting into the depth of all the concepts of lean and Six Sigma because they demand different workshops altogether, but I'm just trying to give you the concept, or rather the lenses which are going to help you to bucketize the problems, to put the problems in the right bucket. Okay, so that is the difference between Six Sigma and lean. So please keep that in mind. If you do not have data, do not, please do not gun for Six Sigma, because you will require history data, you will require number crunching in order to make progress in a Six Sigma project or any Six Sigma scenario. Okay, with that, let me introduce you also to the third concept, which is defect and defective. Now, why this concept is required? Because not only in banking sector, but in other sectors also, you will find two scenarios. And based on your appetite, based on your call, based on different other factors, you need to take a call whether you want to do an analysis on defect or an analysis on defective. Very loosely, actually, we intermix these two words, defects and defectives, even though the implications from a Six Sigma standpoint are not completely the same. But there are a lot of mingling which happens when someone talks about these two concepts. Let me give a very simple example. Then we'll get into some other domains example. Then we'll get into the banking example. Now, let me take an example which all of us had gone through. Suppose there is a classroom, there is a school which is there, and inside that school there is a classroom where there are 20 students, and now these 20 students are taking 3 unit tests, subject A, subject B, and subject C. Now these 20 students are getting evaluated whether they are passing the exam or not, basis if someone clears all the three exams, we are saying that, okay, this particular person has passed this particular exam. So in order to pass the entire exam, the person needs to clear subject A, subject B, and subject C. Now, even if he fails in one subject, he is failing in the final exam. So that is how we are defining it. Now, just think, for one particular subject, how many opportunities of going wrong are there? There are three opportunities, right? So there are fundamentally three opportunities which are there for one particular student to go wrong. If you are looking at a problem from a defective standpoint, you will not get into the details of whether a particular student has failed in one subject or in two subjects or in three subjects. You will simply check, okay, out of 20 students, 10 students could not clear the exam. I know that I am perhaps demeaning the standard of the school, but with due respect to the people who are teaching this particular set of students, let us get back to the problem discussion. So if you find that there are 10 people who have at least failed in one exam, you will say that you are basically taking a defective finding approach. You are not getting into the details of how many opportunities of going wrong were there. So in this particular case, your focus will be to reduce the number 10 to whatever target you take. If you take that, okay, I'm going to make an improvement of 80%, then that 10 should come down to 2. So you are basically reducing 8 out of 10. So that is where you can look at. But if you look at a defect centric approach, so which is generally the case a lot of time people do in Six Sigma, you should check that out of those 10 people, is it that five students have failed in only one exam? Is it that just three people have failed in two exams? And there are two people who have failed in all three exams. So what happens if you do that? Your total number of opportunities of going wrong were not 20 in this case, but 20 multiplied by 3, because for each student, there were 3 opportunities of going wrong. So 3 opportunities were there. So fundamentally, your denominator becomes 60 and your numerator becomes, in the example which I had given, 5 people have failed in one exam. So 5 plus 3 people have failed in two exams. So 6. So that makes it 11 plus 2 in all three. So that's 6 again. So 17 divided by 60. So you are fundamentally, in this particular example which I had taken for defects, your baseline value or the value which you are trying to improve becomes 17 divided by 60. So which is somewhere around, I think, 0.28 or something like that, or 28%. So if you take a target that you want to reduce that, so your target should be to bring down this 28% to whatever is your appetite. So that is the general approach which you have to take when you are baselining your problem. Now, if I take an example, typically in other sectors, so when you are looking at some, maybe a sector, let me get into the manufacturing sector, because again, this is slightly easier to relate to. If you are manufacturing a car, and if the car has broadly 5 parts, and if you want to make sure that the car is error free, there can be 2 approaches. One can be, you can look at the overall car as one single unit. Secondly, you can look at all the 5 parts of the car, and you can think of, okay, in one particular car, how many opportunities of going wrong were there, then how many times I had gone wrong. So you can look at that as well. So in case of the defect approach in a car manufacturing scenario, you are fundamentally you are bifurcating the problem, you are actually having a closer look at the problem. So that is why generally, if someone has enough amount of data, it is always advisable to take the approach of defect. So don't look at the defectives, but look at the defects. That's a better approach of Six Sigma. But definitely there can be constraint of data. In case there is a constraint of data pulling out, or there is some issue with the origin of the data itself, then you can go ahead and ensure that you are doing the project using the defective approach. Now, if I take an example in the banking sector, a lot of time we say that I want to for example, reduce the overall number of, or rather the turnaround time for the loan. Okay, so typically, if you ask me if there is a turnaround time reduction which you are looking at, people tend to do a lean project, because as I mentioned, that in case of lean, you don't need to have a lot of data. You can simply study the process and you can do it. But let me take an example that I have enough amount of data corresponding to each of the steps which are involved in uh, for the loan sanction. Now, if I look at the overall loan sanction, there can be 5 steps, 5 broad steps in the overall loan sanction process. Starting from the person who has applied for the loan till the point where this particular loan is getting approved. There can be 5 steps which can be involved. There can be one, step two, step three, step four, and step five. Now, if you look at the overall data as, okay, I'm going to analyze case on case basis, which all are the cases where the number of times that the overall process had overshoot the set time of 7 days. So I'm just taking that 7 days is the time which you had decided that should be the ideal time for processing the loan. If you take that approach, if you take the first approach, then you are looking at the defectives. But if you look at whether the delay has happened in step 1 or step 2 or step 3 or step 4 or step 5, and if you have a baseline ideal time set for all these steps, then you are actually taking the approach of defects. So ideally, if you ask me, if you have data, I'll reiterate, always go ahead and take the second route of looking at the defects, because you may not need to fix the entire process, but you may have to fix only 1 or 2 parts which are there. So that is why I just wanted to give that example of students. It's very easy to relate to. Then you can actually take it forward from there. Now, before moving forward, I will get into the Six Sigma problem solving flow. So let us discuss quickly that how Six Sigma talks about solving a problem. Okay, and then we'll get into the Six Sigma levels. So that will be the next point. But before that, let me first introduce you to the concept of Six Sigma problem solving. So broadly, so this is the problem solving flow when we talk about Six Sigma. Okay, so you have a business problem. You have to turn that into a statistical problem, find a statistical solution, then try to find a business solution to it. How it works? So the business problem can be, there can be an organization. So if you are working for an organization, you may think that, okay, for me, my problem is, so now the problem can be either strategic or it can be operational. I'm not getting into it. I'm just taking one problem, which is again related to the loan concept, which I was discussing just now. You are saying that, okay, I want to improve the overall loan that I am issuing. So which can be, maybe I can say that, okay, car loan is at X, is at X level. I want to issue 2X. I want to 100% improve it in the next 6 months time, for example. So the business problem will be, I want to increase the overall loan. So that becomes a business problem. So that is not a statistical problem yet. Now, when you attach number to it, so the second statement that I made, that I want to increase the loan from X to 2X within 3 months. So I'm quantifying it in 2 ways. I'm quantifying the target, I'm quantifying the time limit. So then that becomes a statistical problem. Now, how I arrive at a statistical solution? I fundamentally analyze that particular problem. And that is where the example of defects and defectives which I was giving will come into play. Now you may find out that, so that is something which is known as an analysis phase in Six Sigma. You have to do an analysis. Now in that analysis, you may find out that out of the 5 steps which are involved in the entire process of loan sanction rather, there are 2 processes, 2 sub-processes where you need to improve by not just by 100%, by maybe by 150%, which will overall give you an improvement of 100%. So when you break it down and when you come up with this kind of a statistical solution that, okay, in this sub-process 1 and in sub-process 4, I want an improvement of 150%. And then you come up with that statistical solution. That becomes a statistical solution for you, which is third step. Then the fourth step is basically the business solution, where you are telling people who are executing the process on the ground that, okay, if this was my as is process, this becomes my to be process, and these are the changes which I want to make in the overall process. So that's a simpler way of looking at a Six Sigma problem solving flow. So basically, fundamentally, all you need to keep in mind, we're moving from a problem to a solution, but it's a non-statistical problem or a business problem which is getting addressed through statistics, and that therefore we are converting that into a statistical problem, then to statistical solution, then finally into the business solution aspect. So that is how you can look at it. Also, please keep in mind, whenever we talk about Six Sigma, you can ideally use either of two methods. One is DMAIC, which is something which you can find on top of it, on top of this particular flow, which is define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Or you can also do a DFSS, so which is something which I have not shown here. DFSS is nothing but where you are designing a process. So if you are doing a greenfield implementation, then you are trying to design a process, and you are designing the process in first place in such a robust way that the process itself is a Six Sigma process. Because I said that in this particular case, I'm trying to improve the process. So in general, most of the time you will be implementing Six Sigma in this kind of scenarios, because none of us is going to perhaps open a bank tomorrow, but there will be very few people of us who will be opening a bank or a banking institution tomorrow. For that particular person, he needs to do a greenfield, he or she needs to do a greenfield implementation. From a greenfield implementation standpoint, DFSS comes into play. So there it is not D, M, A, I, and C. The first three steps remain the same, where you are defining, then you are measuring the data, then you are analyzing the problem, then you are not improving, but you are actually designing the solution there. And then you are validating. So instead of improve and control, you will have design and validation in case of DFSS. But I have not given that example keeping the time constant in mind. So, but please keep in mind that whenever you are trying to approach a Six Sigma issue, this is the flow, and this is the closure look at that flow. Obviously, I'm not getting into all the steps, but just for you to put the big picture in your mind, and you can also think that, okay, this is how I can approach one particular problem from a Six Sigma standpoint. So in define phase, basically you identify the voice of customer. You start with identification of the voice of customer, which is VOC. Then you identify the critical to quality points. You identify that which all metrics are my critical to quality points. And then you move to the definition of the project by defining the charter, by defining the team. Then you actually measure to understand how your present process is doing. Then you actually analyze the problem, where you actually find out the causes. You first set the goal, you then identify the causes. Then you start improving, and slowly you start checking whether how you can control it. Now, a lot many times, one question which gets people asked is that do I need to do a full-fledged Six Sigma project in order to implement Six Sigma in my field of work? The answer to that is no, because basically at times you may have to make use of some of the Six Sigma principles when you can't have the luxury of time in terms of executing a full-fledged project. Okay, so if you talk about a full-fledged Six Sigma project, yes, it's a 5-phase process where you start off with definition and then you end with the control phase. But there can be scenarios where you may have to use some simple principles of Six Sigma or some techniques of Six Sigma. Why I am saying so? Please keep in mind, whatever statistics, whatever mathematics I'm talking about, or some of the non-statistical methods which are involved in Six Sigma I'm talking about, at the end of the day, Six Sigma is fundamentally is a combination of around 65 techniques. Okay, so it's about 65 techniques, and there out of these 65, there are around 20 statistical techniques, or rather 25, I will say, statistical techniques, and around 40 non-statistical techniques. So this is very similar to how you drive a car. Okay, how you drive a car is something which one can teach to you. That okay, these are the basics of driving a car. But how you will drive it on the road once you get the license depends on you. You may be someone who may prefer to take a high speed kind of a route. You may be someone who may prefer going for a zigzag kind of a route. You may be someone who may try to go for a defensive driving technique. So it is very similar to that. So there is a mix and match which you have to do. And please keep in mind, in Six Sigma, in any project, you don't need to implement all these 65 techniques. All these 65 techniques give you options. Yes, it's a combination which has to happen. Perhaps in a robust Six Sigma project, all you need to do is to make use of hardly 15 to 16 techniques, which will be a mix of statistical and non-statistical technique. But you don't need to make use of all the 65 techniques which are there. So you can choose your style. If you are planning to become a Six Sigma professional and use that in your area of work, you can actually choose your style once you understand the Six Sigma concepts in details, in complete details. That when you understand all the tools, when you understand all the techniques, then you can actually pick your style. That whether you want to and start off by analyzing normalized data, whether you want to get into some other data analysis kind of a technique. So that is where you can actually pick and choose your style. But it is not that that you can't, if you don't have a scope of executing a full-fledged Six Sigma project, you can't make use of Six Sigma concepts in your area of work. So in silos, yes, a lot of times you may have to do simply an analysis, nothing more than that. So if you have to do a data analysis, there is a loose statement which a lot of people make, that people say that okay, I have some data, let's do a Six Sigma project. It is not like that. If you want to do a full-fledged Six Sigma project, it's a bigger thing. But can you make use of some of the Six Sigma techniques while analyzing a data? The answer is yes. So for analysis, for example, you have something called, the most popular one is Pareto, 80-20 principle. Then you have something called a very non-statistical, very popular method called fishbone technique. Also, you have pure statistical methods like an ANOVA, which is analysis of variance. You can do an ANOM, which is an analysis of mean, chi-square test, regression, correlation. All these concepts you can definitely use, but all these concepts have a different purpose altogether. But if you are interested, you can pick from these tools and you can say that okay, fine, I want to analyze the root cause and I don't want to do anything else. So in that case, you should go ahead and actually pick any of the root cause analysis methods which is available. You don't need to bother for a full-fledged Six Sigma process. You don't need to bother for the defect. You don't need to bother for the defectives. You don't need to bother for leads. So that's the beauty of Six Sigma. You can learn all the techniques and then slowly start deploying based on whatever is your purpose or objective of learning the subject. Now, this is the overall flow. I'm definitely not getting into that entire thing as a part of this particular session, but just wanted to give you that direction, that how you can make use of Six Sigma. With that, actually, these are the 5 levels which you have. So in typically, I talked about the formation of teams in the previous slide. And if you look at the fourth box under define the project D, you have something called a defined team. So that is where this different levels of Six Sigma comes into play. If you want to start off your Six Sigma journey, you typically start off with white belt. So white belt is nothing but knowing the basics of Six Sigma. So perhaps whatever we are discussing here is a little kind of basics of Six Sigma in one particular domain. But if you want to explore that more, so typically, generally, a half-day session is conducted. So you know what is Six Sigma, where all Six Sigma can be applied, and what are the basic concepts of Six Sigma. So that is a white belt kind of a session. Then you get into yellow belt kind of a level. So at a yellow belt level, you are good at all the non-statistical methods of Six Sigma. So you can do analysis where there is not too much of number which is available. But since all of you come from banking domain, so number crunching is something which gives you bread and butter. So definitely that is not the level which you people should aim if you are exploring Six Sigma more. Third level is green belt, where the statistical stuff come into play. So green belt is a very critical guy. Green belt is someone who understands the statistics which are involved in Six Sigma, and this particular guy is a little junior guy who is doing the analysis, who can drive the project on his own, but who is not doing the stakeholder management. So this person is doing the all the statistical part, all the statistical aspect, but this person is not doing the stakeholder management on his own. Then comes black belt. So black belt is more of a leader of a Six Sigma project. If it's a organization level strategic Six Sigma project which is being driven, typically that will be driven by the black belt guy. Now this black belt person will do the not only the analysis part in from a statistical standpoint, but also will be a key player in managing the stakeholders, because a lot many times, even though it looks very simple on one particular slide where there are some 5 phases I had shown, where it seems that okay, it's a very pretty simple journey, but believe me, starting from the definition where the basic data collection happens, there will be a lot of resistance, because if there is no buy-in at different levels, there will be a lot of resistance in terms of pulling out the data. The data will be in different forms. There can be technical challenges. There can be issue in collating the data. There can be some technologies which are used, but some may be using some very advanced tool, some may be using some very basic tool. So in order to collaborate all those data, that can become a challenge. So to all those stakeholder management, managing the time, then getting the buy-in, all those become the responsibility of the black belt. So black belt is typically a senior guy who had already undergone the green belt level and is also aware of all these concepts. Then comes the master black belt level. Master black belt typically his 80% of bandwidth goes in mentoring the black belts. So this person, so there will be very few master black belts in an organization, but this person fundamentally manages, or rather mentors, I'll not say manage, rather mentors the black belt projects which are being driven. So he is more of a consultant to all the black belts, and definitely he will also get into the problems whenever there is a strategic call which is to be taken. So for example, if you are driving a project and as the outcome of that project, your countermeasure suggestion says that there should be a change in the policy, for example. So that policy change will require the master black belt's intervention, because then at a CXO level, there needs to be conversation which has to happen. So that is where the master black belt can be pulled in across black belt projects which are being run. So these are the typically levels which you have. And why I wanted to highlight these levels, one is you should know that based on your interest, that based on your area of work in your domain, that how and where you want to fit in Six Sigma, and also based on your appetite, if you want to explore the path of Six Sigma, how you at till what level you will be interested. Third, what are the problems you want to solve, that also has a connect with this level. So typically white belt is a person who plays a role fundamentally in culture building of an organization. So the expectation from a white belt person, so I'll rather rephrase the sentence in this way: the Six Sigma expectation from a white belt person is that the person should be driving a culture. He should be encouraging someone else that you should make use of this, because Six Sigma helps the organization to become process centric. It helps you to improve certain processes for which maybe all of us are slogging. So for that culture building, for in order to have those conversations, white belts play a critical role. Yellow belt are the people who play a very critical role at a Six Sigma project level, or this is one person who start thinking from a structured standpoint. So some of you might be already aware of Mr. Edward de Bono. Personally, I'm a big fan of this gentleman. So Edward de Bono, what does he teach? He teaches thinking. So Six Sigma is also a pattern of thinking in a way. You can look at it in this particular way. So yellow belt is a person who gets into, so Edward de Bono always talked about structured thinking. So yellow belt is a person who gets into that habit of structured thinking, even if he does not understand data. So I'm not saying that yellow belt will not have any connect with data, but he will have a structured way of looking at it. For example, If there is a if I refer back to the problem which I was talking about, like opening a bank account or the loan process example which I was taking, in either of those cases, if someone is looking into the entire problem, then that person is still not in, it's still not there, is still not having that Six Sigma kind of a mindset. The person should start looking into the problem as a set of sub problems. So that is where the yellow belt thought process comes. Green belt is a person who typically starts looking at what are the data points which are available to the entire process, to corresponding to each of the sub processes. So that is a green belt guy. Now, black belt basically fundamentally drives the project who had almost reached the highest level of Six Sigma. So, if you want to drive projects, if you want to make strategical differences in your organization, definitely black belt is the level which you should gun for. And if not black belt, at least green belt you should gun for. Then, if you find it really uh, uh, exciting that you want to mentor a lot of projects, you want to face a lot of challenges in terms of solving problems, that is where the master black belt level will come into play. So that is these are the different levels of Six Sigma. Now let me get into some of the applications of Six Sigma in the banking domain itself. Now I had given, so this is definitely not an exhaustive list, but just to give you some nuggets so that you can start thinking in this direction. The overall Six Sigma solutions, or rather the problems which can be solved using Six Sigma, even though I keep on saying that you can think of, if you can think of a problem, if you can think of a structured problem, you can solve it using Six Sigma. But these are some of the examples which I had given. Okay, something can be related to a strategic level, something can be at an operational level. From a strategic standpoint, I had given four examples, like reducing financial risk, so simulation for financial decisions, and the other ones. From an operational standpoint, similarly, I had given some examples. If this is definitely not an exhaustive list, but these are just to give you some direction that these are some of the strategic problems which you can solve, and these are some of the operational problems which you can solve in your domain, in the banking domain. From a strategic standpoint, that is why I just wanted to give you that understanding. If you are aiming for some of these operational problem solving, those typically become your yellow belt kind of a project. And believe me, in a lot of cases, it will not be even a Six Sigma project typically. It will be more of a lean project where hardly one or two techniques of Six Sigma will be used. But mostly it will be a lean project where you will be studying the process and you will be trying to remove the waste, as I had already defined. Then, from a strategic standpoint, if you are actually driving a strategic Six Sigma project, that typically becomes more like a black belt project. So, if you can pull out a black belt project for your organization, nothing like it. Nothing like it. That's a not only a fantastic achievement from an organization standpoint, but also from an individual standpoint, that's a fantastic addition to your curriculum as well, to your curriculum vitae as well, to your CV as well. So that is how you can look at it. Now, again, I had given another perspective that how Six Sigma can be implemented across different functions of banking. So I had picked up some examples from the loan department. Then I had picked up some examples from the account opening function. So definitely any kind of reduction of cycle time or any kind of improvement that is happening, whether it's in the customer information gathering process or in the credit evaluation process or improving the productivity of the agents, all those can become Six Sigma projects if there exists any issue with either of all these things. Then similarly for account opening as well. So whenever you are trying to reduce some turnaround time, whenever you are trying to reduce some error or trying to reduce some rework, all those can become your potential Lean Six Sigma projects. I'll not use just Six Sigma project, but potential process improvement projects or Lean Six Sigma project. Now, I'll give one example before I complete the concept part of this particular session. Then we'll get into the second hour where we'll be taking questions and then I'll try to address those. So one example I will take is a very simple example where there is a case study which I had shown. Believe me, the actual Six Sigma projects may not be as simple as this, but definitely this is one of the typical applications of Six Sigma from a real life incident which had happened. So this is a case study which is available over the internet as well. If you want to explore it more, you can actually do that. But I had typically taken out the parts which I had covered during today's discussion. So this was actually done by a bank where they wanted to improve the car loan business process. So their top leadership had asked the executives that you have to improve the car loan business process. So then they actually created a team and they had given a timeline of 1 year. And they said that the car loan business process should give me double the business which I'm getting today. And this was the statement which they made. That was fundamentally a business problem which was thrown to the executives of this particular bank. Then they actually came up with a Six Sigma project, which was more of a strategic Six Sigma project, where they found out that what is the sub processes, what are the sub processes which are causing an issue. And after that, they came up with a set of 10 Six Sigma projects, 10 small Six Sigma projects they did. So out of those 10 projects, 4 to 5 were green belt projects. There were a couple of yellow belt projects. After running all those Six Sigma projects, they finally came up with the solution and which had given them phenomenal actually improvement. And this is a case study which is actually available in internet and it's available in very detailed manner. So if you want to explore this, you can actually go ahead and do that. But I had picked up only one such case study where they had used Six Sigma. They found out one of the sub processes where they found out there is a problem is communication with car dealers. So what they did, they found out that communication with car dealers was one of the problems. So then fundamentally that was the definition part of it. They actually analyzed it. So I had used the simplest of example, which is the Pareto example. So what is Pareto? Pareto says that, so Pareto was basically, just to get back to the history, was a philosopher who found out actually at that time, almost 400 years back, that whatever happens in nature, whatever happens in universe, only 20% causes are there for 80% of incidents happening. So he went ahead and said that, uh, so all the, for example, accidents which are happening, you can relate it that there are 20% people who are driving are responsible for 80% of the accidents happening. Then he had done other studies as well. People who had done research on Pareto had found out that it is something which is a very universal truth kind of a thing, where it applies to everything and it applies to sports as well. 20% of batsmen will keep on scoring 80% of the runs for a particular team. So it applies everywhere. So that is the principle which has been applied in order to analyze this particular problem as well, where the count had been plotted bucket wise, that what are the broad reasons. So no communication was found to be almost contributing to 60%, that no communication with car dealers was causing 60%, followed by interest rate too high as another 20%. So those are the two buckets which were giving 80% of the issues for the car loan business process. So one particular sub process and therefore a project has been churned out, which is communication with car dealers. Basis that, they had done a project and they had defined the scope of the project as the start, as the contract with car dealer closed till the car dealer submits the loan application. So that's the process which they had actually started analyzing. And instead of solving the entire car loan business process problem, they got into the sub process level, and then that is how they had looked at it. Definitely, I had made it very diluted. I had skipped all the techniques which had been used, but this is fundamentally the approach which they had taken. And to end it at the control level, they had put this control chart in place. So that's fundamentally a control chart which you can see there. There are multiple control charts which can be there, and this is one of those charts where they are actually uh, trying to check the trend, that what is the inactive rate of this slipping dealers which is there. And then if there is some uh, ambiguity which is being shown in the trend chart, then they would have taken further countermeasures. So that's the approach which they had taken. Obviously, it is much complex than the simply the three images which I had put, but that is how actually you start looking at things from a Six Sigma standpoint. And Pareto is definitely one of those 65 techniques which I was talking about. So this is one case study which I wanted to share with you. I think I'm already done with the first hour, which I had said that I'll be utilizing in order to discuss the concepts. Uh, I'll check if there is already any question. I can take that, or we can have typically an interactive session so that that becomes a good value addition for all of us. So open for everyone. So there is one question which I can already see from Mr. Rajesh. Okay, I'll answer that. By the time others can also type in or they can ask as well, because now I'm going to stop sharing the screen. So the one question which Mr. Rajesh had asked, he's asking, do we need to be good in mathematics and technical knowledge or mathematics and statistics? I think mostly I had answered this, but still I'll try to address this particular question. Yes, if you want to become a master black belt, then you need to be good in mathematics and technical knowledge. Now technology is something which I can, as I had already shown, if you are trying to become, I'll go back to that slide that will make it a little simpler. I'll get back to that slide so that those of you who had joined a little late can also see. Yes, so if you are actually talking about technology, without technology it is a little difficult to understand the database which are there, which are fundamentally the sources of the data, and also to understand the machine learning aspect. But if you understand basic of statistics, basic, I'll not say you have to be master in statistics. If you understand basic of statistics and a lot of business, then you can definitely get into Six Sigma. For white belt, yellow belt, and till some level of green belt, just to show you this particular hierarchy once again, you don't need to be a master of mathematics and statistics. Basic, yes, you need to know how mean gets calculated, how data pattern changes, but those are basic mathematics. You don't need to be a stats master for doing all those things. Till yellow belt, very simple. Till green belt, the first level of statistics will actually come. I hope that answers your question.
Tomalda, if I can
Yeah,
speak for 5 minutes, I'll try
sure,
and
sure,
explain the audience,
sure,
mostly in terms of investment banking terminologies and things, because
sure,
I have done some small lean projects with my earlier organization. So,
sure,
guys, if I can, if you can, I mean, relate with Tamalda's slides, the first one of those concepts was waste. So, waste can be something which someone is doing but is not necessary. So for example, I can say that let's say that we are processing a trade file and the client has sent trade instructions over fax or over market, and then we are taking a printout of those trade instruction to see what is the cost price, what is the market price, what is the trade date, settlement date, currency, and all those things, and then we are ticking it with a pen to see if everything is correct or everything we have inputted it correctly in our applications. But that is actually unnecessary, because that trade instruction can very well be converted into a PDF file with the help of a converter, or into an Excel file with the help of a converter, and that wastage or printing of papers can be reduced. So that can be one very easy example of waste. Now coming to another terminology we Tamalda used was VOC, voice of customer. So if I relate it to our investment banking fund accounting domain, so let's say I lead a team of for 15 to 20 FTs into reconciliation, and my downstream team is NAV team. So my customer is NAV team. So let's take an example of Tamalda, who is doing a Lean or Six Sigma project. So if he wants to know what is the voice of customer for me or reconciliations, he'll go to the NAV team and ask them about my team's feedback. I mean, feedback in terms of quality, feedbacks in terms of timeliness, feedbacks in terms of knowledge. So that can be my VOC, voice of customer. And definitely, if my team is scoring low in any of the parameter, let's say there are lots of errors, and so quality is a concern for my team, and upon this completion of this exercise POC, I can get a conclusion that yes, quality is something on which I should improve, or maybe timeliness, or maybe concepts of my team members. Then there was another terminology which he used was a fishbone diagram. So fishbone diagram is something wherein we are using a four quadrant method, like people, process, client, and technology. Let's say that there is a particular process wherein by process I mean a team which is not functioning properly. So if we want to go deep into the problems, the root cause of the problems, we can find uh, we can use this fishbone diagram to find what is the root cause of the problem. Is it the people who are wrong people are hired, people from non-fund accounting background are being hired at senior positions and they are not able to manage, or is it the client who is actually very panicky and panics upon every now and then, or is it the technology which is not up to the mark, or is it there is a deficiency in the process itself, that after A it should be BC, other than that it's after A it's CD. So all these techniques, I believe with these examples we are able to relate to our industry as well. The bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that I am a core operations guy with the flair of Six Sigma or Lean, because if you have this flair, that will definitely give you an advantage over your peers. uh, let's say that you're working, or all of us are working in a corporate world wherein there is stiff competition. So like we are from operations background and most of us are experts, but in case you have a flair for streamlining and Six Sigma and Lean, that will definitely be taken notice. It will give you a visibility, and which will definitely help you to go ahead in your career or go up the ladder. So in case you're interested or you have a flair for this kind of things, you can definitely get in touch with Tamal over LinkedIn. He is very much approachable and helpful as well. I believe Tamalva, you have your own training sessions as well, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah.
I'm not wrong.
Yes, yes,
So
Shobhashaji. Yeah.
so he can train you guys as well. Um, yeah, I hope this helps.
Yes, Shobhashaji. Good examples actually given to set the context in terms of the daily operations which you are doing. So that nice example. Thanks for that, Shobhashaji. So I'll take another question which has come from Narendra. So Narendra is asking, how can we correlate Six Sigma to business analyst and SDLC? So which is I think software development life cycle, and how much it's important in that, how it works. So yeah, it is very important to answer to your question. Yes, it is very important. Now typically I will give you one example where Six Sigma can be related to software development lifecycle, even though I think majority of the audience comes from a different background. So in a typically software development lifecycle, you will be having, so there can be two scenarios. You will be either you can have multiple defects which you want to rectify. In order to do that, you can actually do an analysis and find out that which are the sources of those defects. The source, you may end up with getting the processes, or maybe it can be the people who are doing it. In either case, you have to try and find out what are those things which are influencing the errors or defects happening in the software development. Is it that, for example, night shift is committing more development defects, is contributing to more defects, or is it that there is a particular day on which all the defects are coming? So that kind of analysis can be done. That is one aspect. Secondly, post production also, you can make use of Six Sigma. We can definitely talk about that in details. If you want, we can talk about that in offline as well. And in case of post production defects as well, you can get into the origin of the defect and you can try and fix it at a process level. So that is where it is very important to answer that. The other aspect which you had asked was business analysis. So from a business analysis standpoint, typically you map the business analysis as a part of the requirements management. So when you have a requirements management, starting from the requirements management, you build something called a traceability matrix. So how you build that traceability matrix? In the traceability matrix, one particular business requirement gets mapped to the final coding which is happening, which is actually creating the final software product. So that is where you can, in that entire traceability matrix, there are different steps which are there. You can think of it that either of the steps can have the problem as, or rather contributing to majority of the problems which are there. So from that standpoint also you can make use of Six Sigma. Yes, it works because in it is one of the segments where Six Sigma has been adopted very fast, and there are a lot of organizations, like if you look at uh, organizations like Wipro, TCS, who have a very dedicated kind of Six Sigma team who do specifically work on this kind of projects. And in fact, I was also the part of the Six Sigma task force when I was working with Wipro. So it works a lot to answer your question. I hope I could answer your question, Narendra.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Tamal, sir. Really
Cool,
was
cool, cool.
informative.
If you want more details, feel free to get in touch with.
Sure,
That
sir.
should
We'll
be fine.
connect with you
Sure, sure.
offline.
Then I have one question from Saurabh. Saurabh is asking, could you please talk about certifications in the Six Sigma field? How should one approach, especially when we are totally new to this Six Sigma? So from a certification standpoint, I think it's a poetic justice that I am in this particular slide only. So this is the certification journey. It starts off with white belt, then it moves to yellow belt, then green belt, then black belt, and then master black belt. And how one should approach, you first should start off with the white belt certification level. Then you can decide. So white belt gives you the exposure from where you can actually decide on whether you should go ahead with yellow belt or not, or you should go ahead with green belt or not. Then you can take your call. But white belt empowers you with that knowledge. So these are the levels to answer the first part of your question. And to answer the second part, uh, how should one approach? One should approach by actually attending a white belt level program, because that is where you will be able to take an informed decision. Okay. Saurabh, does that answer your question?
Yes, Tamal, that answers my question. I also have one
Yes.
follow-up question.
Yes, sure.
Can you share some resources where I can prepare, or any website, or anything in particular? How to?
So if you don't mind, please drop me your mail ID to the email which I had provided here,
Okay.
or maybe you can drop that same in my mobile number as well. So this is my WhatsApp number as well. I'll share the resources which you are looking for.
Oh, okay. Sure, sure. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Sure.
Bye.
I'll share all the links.
Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Then I have one question from Anurag Sinha. Can Six Sigma be applied in BPO call centers? Yes, very much, very much. So Six Sigma, so BPO and call center is one of the areas or one of the domains where Six Sigma has a vast application. So in fact, simply because wherever you have processes and you run after your revenue is directly related to the less turnaround time of the processes. So just to give you an example, there are two concepts, right? There is a concept called lead time and there is a concept called turnaround time. And in BPO or in call center, it's all about optimizing these two times for whatever metric you consider. So in that kind of a scenario, Lean Six Sigma becomes a very powerful tool, and there are a lot of case studies and there is a lot of application which happens in of Six Sigma in this particular domain. So the answer is yes, Anurag. So Anurag, does it answer your question, or are you looking for any other specific insight or some more detailed insight about it?
Hi, Tamal. It does answer my question. I guess I need to be more specific. Right now, I'm working in a BPO,
Okay.
I'm working as a team manager, handling a team of around 25.
Correct.
It's a client-facing role, and also handling contractors and vendors and everything. So overall, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make my process more efficient. So I was just exploring ways in which I can make my process more efficient, and also try and cut down on the customer complaint, so to speak. And
Okay. So these are the two buckets you are looking at. One is cutting down on the customer complaint and making the process efficient, right? Hello? Anurag, I think we lost your voice.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no
don't know what
problem.
happened there.
No issue.
Yes. So yeah, I'm trying to make my process more efficient. I also cut down the customer complaints. That's number one. And also, I'm thinking whether it's at all sensible to go into this course at such a, I would say, late age, but I'm not exactly young. So I don't know how this figures out for me. So if you can help me
No, no.
there.
So to answer that, to answer the first part of it, actually learning has no age, to be very honest, and it's something which is not just a statement which I am making, but there can be different needs which may pop up at different ages. That's why I'm making this statement more from my experience. Only I am saying making this statement, and to be very honest, yes, if you ask me, for the typical two scenarios which you had told, or rather the typical two problems which you had mentioned here, reduction of customer complaint, and secondly, making the process efficient, I believe that in terms of time, mostly it will be. So these are the two classical application areas of Six Sigma. So these are actually the two classical areas of application of Six Sigma, and definitely they can be used. Six Sigma can be used there. Just to give you from a broad, zoomed out standpoint, how you can look at customer complaints. So from a Six Sigma standpoint, you should actually put the causes of this customer complaints, start by putting the causes of the customer complaints into different buckets. Start off with that, then check what is the first level of outcome which is coming out, and then definitely at the second level you will need to use some of the statistical methods. But to start with, you pick this thing, you start putting the problems causes into different buckets, then we can take a secondary call, and you can always reach out to me. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll try to help you out on that.
All right. Thank you so much. I will probably connect you offline.
Sure, Anurag. Yeah,
Thanks.
feel free to connect. Yeah. Okay, so I have got one more question from Vivekananda Reddy. How many training hours needed for to be white belt? White belt is typically a 4 hours session. So generally, there are a lot of organizations who do it 2 hours on 2 days. There is some organization which do it on 4 hours basis itself. Typically 4 hours. And it varies from organization to organization. If you're looking for any content versus organization kind of a chart, reach out to me. I'll help you out on that. And also for the next belt. Okay, so typically yellow belt will be around 10 hours. So some people break it in 2 days, across 2 days. Green belt will be somewhere around 20 hours. Black belt will be typically 8 full days, so somewhere around 60 hours. Master black belt is almost kind of 20 to 24 days program. So it increases rapidly towards the end. So Vivekananda, I guess I could answer your question. I'm taking your silence as yes. Yeah. So any other question in the chat box? In the chat box, I don't see any other question as of now. Yeah, so Vivekananda is saying that it answers his question. So thank you. You're most welcome. I don't see any other question in the chat box. Any question that you want to ask me directly? Can you suggest a few best Six Sigma courses online? There are many. There are many actually. Drop me a message. I'll send you the links. I have the links in my mail. I'll be sending those.
Hi, Tamal. This is Anurag again.
Hi, Anurag.
I actually have one more question. It's actually on
Sure.
behalf of all my friends.
Hmm.
We have been in the BPO, BPM industry, as they're called now,
Right.
um, for a long time, close to 9, 10 years now. Right.
Okay.
Out
Hmm.
of which, the first couple of years we have been in banking, and then the
Hmm.
succeeding 6, 7 years we have been in the BP or BPM industry. So
Correct.
my question to you is, um, and we are all like in the mid 30s, 34,
Hmm.
33,
Hmm.
34. So
Hmm.
so if we go in for a course now, some are saying that there is no point doing a white belt or a
Hmm.
yellow belt
Hmm.
because
Hmm.
in there are not many jobs, for
Hmm.
white belt or yellow belt. More jobs
Hmm.
for green belt and upwards.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
for someone who has been in the BPO industry for close to 7, 8 years,
Hmm.
does it make any sense to make a switch now at this point in his career and try to make something of his career in the Six Sigma
Yeah.
industry? I mean, the field.
Okay. So to answer your question, yes, because yes and no. I'll say how. Yes, because Six Sigma is not an industry. The beauty of Six Sigma is that it is not an industry. It is more like it is an enabler which can help you across industries. And if you ask me, definitely in BPO industry and in wherever, in whichever industry you go, it is going to help you. So it is not industry specific. So like in banking, you have Six Sigma cases which you can apply. You in BPO you can do that. Similarly, in as you mentioned, BPM is the new name. Similarly, in IT and other sectors, you can apply Six Sigma. Now, to answer to the first part of your question, from a job standpoint, if you ask me, white belt is not something which gives you an edge. And if you are doing, for example, a green belt level directly, that is also okay with your experience. Why? I'll answer to that as well. In the case of a green belt, the first few segments, first few hours typically covers white belt. And can a fresher understand all those things very quickly? May not be, because he will not be able to relate with a lot of business scenarios. But someone like you who had spent enough time, for that person getting into a green belt level directly makes sense actually, because you don't need to go through the entire journey. What happens whenever you apply for any particular course, be it yellow belt or be it green belt, your actually application is reviewed. In most of the cases, your application gets reviewed basis the total number of years of experience you have, the previous certifications that you have. So if you have already spent enough amount of time in the industry, you may think of going ahead with a green belt certification also. And from an employability standpoint, yellow belt onwards, all the certifications, definitely yellow belt will not give you as much age as master black belt will give you. But yellow belt onwards, all the levels of certification give you that desired level of age in your employability, from an employability standpoint.
Okay, that actually clears a lot of things. And also,
Yeah.
Tamal,
Yeah.
there is one more thing. I'm sorry to take up much of your time.
No problem.
Um,
Please.
um, Thank you. Um, I was going through the job postings on Naukri and the like, and they're all for yellow belt. They're looking for at least 1 or 2 years of experience working in Six Sigma. So for someone who has been in the BPO industry for 7 years and who is
Mhm.
planning to do a Six Sigma course, then how
Mhm.
do I gain the work experience? Do I have to work pro bono after completing my course?
Mm, I don't think you need to aim for pro bono, because what happens once you first begin with understanding the course, first begin with taking the workshop. Once you get trained at a yellow belt or at a green belt level, BPO, the beauty of the good thing about the BPO or BPM sector is that you will get a lot of opportunities. I had seen people who had attended training who are from the BPO or BPM industry, and then within 3 months of time they had completed project successfully. So if you have to set that timeline, that you need to give yourself that amount of time, okay, that if you want to have that Six Sigma flavor in your profile, start off with that training. After that training, use that training, because when you are attending the training, you will understand in which all areas you can apply Six Sigma. And definitely in the BPM sector, there are so many arenas where you can actually apply Six Sigma. Pick one or two such areas. Why I'm saying it is better to pick two areas, because one area the Six Sigma application may fail, but in the other one, if you are doing it in two areas, there is a high chance that by the end of the next 3 months, you will end up completing one Six Sigma project, and then that gives you that experience. Typically speaking, 1 or 2 years of Six Sigma experience is very difficult to quantify. That is more of a vague statement which is available. But generally, when you have a conversation, it is more like the number of projects that you had completed. So if you can justify your standing that you had completed 2 projects very nicely, and if you had good amount of learning, it is ultimately the learning and how you applied that understanding which gives you that employability and gives you that edge. I'll say not employability, gives you that edge when you are looking for a job search.
Okay, great. So if I understood you correctly, Tamal,
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, so in my current organization, on successful completion of the course, I should
Yeah.
try and voluntarily take up a project and work on
Correct.
that and complete that in the next
Correct.
3, 4, 6 months, and
Correct.
then count that as experience on my next job.
Yes, absolutely.
Right, right. And also, one more question I'd like to add as a follow-up.
Sure.
How do you see the demand for Six Sigma professionals going forward?
To be very honest, it is very high, because if you look at the way the job market is, so people say that data scientists are one of the most sought after professionals who will be there. And there are two ways of looking at Six Sigma professionals. One is it is relatively easier for Six Sigma professionals to become data scientists, because they're already 2-3 steps ahead of the rest of the crowd. And so if they want to pick up data science, they can actually pick it up relatively easily. That is one thing. Secondly, the good thing about Six Sigma is that Six Sigma is not specific to any industry. So if you are a Six Sigma professional today, if you are working in BPM industry, tomorrow you can think of getting into the hospitality industry or the hospital management industry also, or food industry as well. So which is something which is diversely which is maybe diversely has no connection, I'll say, not diversely opposite, but no, with very little connection. So since it is not industry specific, Six Sigma professionals and job opportunities will always be having a good relation. Definitely it will be having a good relation. So these are the two ways you can look at it. So does it answer your question, Anurag?
Okay, great. It does actually, even though I'm still a bit clouded in the mind, as far
You
as
can
my
feel
future
free
is
to ask.
concerned.
No, you can feel free to ask. We can try and help you out, because other than me also there are other professionals. We can actually pitch in and try to help you out. We have some time in hand.
Sure. I mean, what I can do is, Tamal, probably I will WhatsApp you because I already have your
Sure.
number. So
Sure.
probably I will
Please.
WhatsApp you with my
Please.
queries and okay. All right.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
I love to get in touch. Yeah. Thank you. Now I have another question from Shudipto. Shudipto is asking, does the course of Six Sigma of different professional is different? Like I am working presently in operation and maintenance of biosafety appliances for COVID-19 and general engineering. So does the course designed for banking sector make sense on my career? Yes, Shudipto, it does. So to answer the first part, the course of Six Sigma of different professional belonging to different industry is not different. The course is not different. The basic approach is not different. The techniques that you need to understand do not differ. To answer to the second part, the course designed for banking sector making sense on your career, the examples or the case studies of banking generally will not fit into whatever you are doing right now. So the case study aspect. So if you typically look at a yellow belt or a green belt program, uh, 80% of the entire course is basically concept. So those concepts remain the same. It is not specific to any industry. Those remain the same. Last 20% aspect is fundamentally wherein you look at the application of Six Sigma in that specific industry. So that is where it will be different for different professionals. But the 80% of aspects of learning the techniques and learning the tools of Six Sigma, it remains the same. I hope that answers your question, Shudipto. Yeah, Shudipto says okay. So I believe that his question is answered. Any other question that you want to ask? Because it's 5:30, so we still can have more questions.
Okay. Okay. I have totally 15 years of work experience. So when I started my career, I could see that every company is using Six Sigma. So
Right.
nowadays, I see companies rarely use Six Sigma. They were more into RPA, robotics, artificial intelligence, or whatever it is. So is that mean that the Six Sigma lost its charm, or how Six Sigma is directing towards future?
Yeah, so I'll give the answer. So that's why actually I had put this slide in place. So if you look at how I tried to explain at the beginning of the session, the bigger picture which is there. So fundamentally, as you mentioned, that a lot of people are using artificial intelligence or data science or machine learning, all these things. Six Sigma still stays relevant. Why I'm saying? Because data science basically covers, or data science, or for that matter, when you design a solution using artificial intelligence, covers everything as the superset. Okay, so that covers every aspect of it. So that is why people are taking nowadays the name of the superset, which is artificial intelligence or robotics, which is getting built via data science. But Six Sigma still is relevant because there will be a lot of business processes where, at an operational level, even at a strategic level, to till a mid management level standpoint, you need to blend only statistics and business. You don't need to get into the technical aspect of it. So if I take the example of an industry where technology is already very strong, and in that particular industry, the all the data are available and people are gunning for improving the process. So in those kind of industries, and that is, mind you, the case for most of the industries, Six Sigma can be definitely applied. And now why people not take the name of Six Sigma separately? Because people are actually taking the name of something which covers Six Sigma already. Because artificial intelligence, if you look at it right now, it actually talks about artificial intelligence, AI, ML. A lot of people take the name in this way. So basically artificial intelligence and machine learning. So those actually are something which covers predominantly the premises of Six Sigma. But Six Sigma concepts still exist because Six Sigma concepts are the first 60% of the things which you need to know in order to be a successful data scientist. So that is how I'll like to answer that.
Okay, fine. I understand.
Yeah, so that's the connect. So that's why I had put this big picture. So that this is actually a question which gets asked a lot many times. So I was predicting that. So wanted all of you to have that clarity.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other question that you like to ask? Sabyasachi, Solomon, anything in particular that you want me to discuss? We still have some time.
Oh, that's it. I think you have covered pretty much. What do you say, Sabi? Okay, fine.
Cool, great. So it was nice interacting with all of you. It was a good session. I enjoyed conducting it. I hope you people also will take back something with you. And as I was mentioning, feel free to get in touch with me if you still have any doubt. And other than the email and phone, you can approach me via LinkedIn also. I generally check LinkedIn as well. So these are the three modes which you can use. I'll try to get back to you in 24 hours. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for
Thank
so
you.
much for your time and patience. Thank you for coming forward today and have a wonderful session. Because when I started my career, it was always about Six Sigma, and of late
Okay.
I found that there is no such person who explains Six Sigma now. Even though I agree with your point, Six Sigma is much needed. It's a basic for all advancement and technology on quality improvement. But there is no such person who can explain it so nicely. So thank you so much for this, and it means a lot to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Solomon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye bye. Have a good weekend.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Tamal,
Bye.
sir. Have a great session.
Yeah.
Thank you.